What is up? Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Ryan Weisse, again. And Joe Zollo is even back this week, and I'm still the host, so you know it must be a special episode, and it is. It is our intro to IDP episode. And since Joe is one of the biggest proponents of individual defensive players in fantasy football, we're moving him over to the analyst seat. I'm going to host this week, and we have two wonderful guests to bring you guys into the world of IDP. We have our own Micahel Sicoli, who also works with the guys over at IDP Guys, and from Footballguys, Matt Montgomery. So whether you already play or you're just a little IDP curious, this is going to be a perfect episode for you. Stick with us. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. We kicked Josh Hudson off the show this week because he doesn't give defensive players the respect they deserve, so we gave him the boot. This is the IDP show with me, back after a week off, though we are not live tonight because Joe's schedule is still hectic. Joe Zollo, how are you, buddy?
I completely forgot. I feel like I just did the live show yesterday, so I forgot that you guys had a show last week. So
there you go. Yeah, we got to give Joe some time off during the baseball season because he's a busy guy. That's why I got my Lark shirt on to show this solidarity with my boy Joe. So.
And I don't even have mine on right now. So
that's all right. One of us is repping the Bismarck Larks. Yeah. Joey, how you doing, buddy?
It's the best show of the year. So it's simply put. So
with me in the host seat, your 114th and all 13 of my 14ths are covered up on my fantasy championship belt for our IDP championship. So,
yes.
As mentioned in the intro, while Joe is an amazing advocate and expert when it comes to IDP, we're bringing two guests on tonight and moving me to the host seat. First and foremost, someone who already works with us. You've seen him on our airwaves a ton in the last month, Micahel Sicoli, but he also works with IDP Guys, so he knows his shit. Michael, welcome back. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
Oh, I'm just doing fantastic, Ryan. It's always good to talk IDP, and I think this is probably the first time I'm doing it with Club Fantasy. So, it's a good day. It's a good day to talk IDP.
Joe would know better. Joe, is this the fifth annual IDP show? I know you've petitioned Josh, and we've had different guests on to kind of advocate for IDP every single year. So
I think it's 4. It's probably 4, and I've lost track again. I don't know.
And this is probably the first time we're bringing in 2 IDP guests and kicking Josh completely off the show. We also have one of my coworkers over at Footballguys, and he was brought on to Footballguys specifically to focus on IDP. Matt Montgomery. And Matt, it's your first time on No Punt Intended. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to talk IDP with you guys. Fan of the show here. I really want to get your guys' face about takes, but I also want to learn a little bit tonight. So let's do something.
Well, Joe's going to get in all your faces about all the takes, so make sure you give it right back to him. Normally, it's me and Joe fighting about something and Josh trying to calm us down, but I have to host tonight, so I need you guys to just get in his face about everything.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, there are probably people out there who are either A, against IDP, or B, have no idea what it is. So I want to start the show off with you guys kind of giving your elevator pitch for IDP. And Joe, I'm going to have you go last since you're already here. Michael, tell people why they should be playing IDP.
I mean, I could give 20,000 reasons, but to keep it quick, short, to the point, it's fun. I mean, it's fun. When, listen, we all like rooting for our offensive players. So let's double the player pool of what we're actually interested in. And I think a lot of people get scared of IDP just because they don't know. And we're scared of new things in life traditionally with anything. But when you get into it, when you give it a go, seeing a sack be a positive thing in your mind is an awesome thing because sacks are fun. Tackles for a loss are fun, but instead for offense, it's all negative. So let's just add some positives to the negative with IDP. I've only done it for a few years now. It's a ton of fun.
I love it. Matt, keep it going. Why do you tell people to play IDP? How do you explain it to people?
Man, it's because football is just such a fun game. Every side of the ball, there's something going on, and you have to be able to look at those players and think, okay, who's going to be the one that's going to break the game open. There's nothing like rooting for a guy, a singular player on an 11-man roster or 11-man lineup, and he gets that pick six, and he's your guy, and you're going against your best friend, you're going against your boss, you're going against whoever, and they have that holy grail where it's a sack, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and he just happens to roll in the end zone. You have like a 15, 20-point play. There's nothing like it. You can't get that. It's like the equivalent of an offensive player scoring that 90-yard touchdown. You don't see it. On the same token here, you have some of the best players on the field are defenders at any given time. So you're giving them the spotlight. You're not worried about how's that team's defense doing. No, you're worried about Aaron Donald. You're worried about Von Miller back in his heyday. That's who you're looking at.
I couldn't have said it better. I love the point that you brought up that you can get 20-point plays pretty easily in the right IDP scoring, and that doesn't happen a lot in offensive scoring, Joe. So what's your pitch for IDP, Joseph?
Points.
I knew it. Do you like scoring?
Do you like points? Do you like football? It's just do you like not losing points? Because that's what every defense ever has done is they lose points for you. They actually don't gain you points. Remember how your defense started with 10 points, they ended up with -6 because they got butt fucked by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh my God.
And Matthew's screen just goes
Matt,
blank.
Matt has decided to leave the show.
We want to know why. He's in the Jaguars division, so he knows what it's like. No, it's just you can't lose point. You literally can't lose point. It is almost impossible for a defensive player to lose points.
Yeah.
They would need to get a fumble or an interception and then fumble it and lose that fumble. Lose points. Like, do you know how asinine that would be? That would happen is they intercept it, which in most IDP leagues now you get 6 points for that.
Yeah.
So, and then if they fumble it away, you lose 2 points. So you're still net +4. You literally can't lose points.
I love
Well,
it.
see, Joe, I have actually in my league, I have IDP players lose points when they sack my offensive quarterback.
Oh.
So, if I'm playing Deshaun Watson one week and he gets hit, I actually, he loses 6.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't play in Michael's leagues. That sounds like a Rob Manfred no fun kind of league.
No. It's a ton of fun for me.
Oh, that's fair.
You actually play in that, Michael? Or are you
No,
being
I don't
facetious?
actually.
Oh my God. I was like, that's actually, I love weird scoring.
was-
So I was like, that's awesome. I was like,
That was
terrible.
1000% a joke. That was not.
no, I would love
Maybe I'll
that.
try it. Maybe I'll try it.
To talk about Matt's point of these crazy plays, this was not to win anything. This was a 1:00 game on a Sunday. I had Chandler Jones when he was on the Patriots. He had a blocked field goal return for 86 yards. So it was 8 points plus the fumble recovery, plus
there's
the block,
nothing
plus
like
the
it.
touchdown. It was like a 25-point play.
Yeah.
I was like,
It happens in 15 seconds. I mean, it's
I
just
looked
instantly.
I looked at my score. I had 0 points at that point in time. It was literally the first drive for the opposition. And I looked and I go and check my phone 10 minutes into the games. And I'm like, I'm up 40-2. How'd that happen? Chandler Jones, 25 points already. Okay. Nice.
Also,
That's fun.
last thing I'll throw out there. Worst game of the last decade for a lot of people? Colts Broncos, right? Everyone remember that horrific Thursday night game. Ton of fun for us.
Great
So
game
Alex
for
Singleton
defense.
get us 7,000 fancy points.
Oh,
Joseph Jewell get a ton.
you
Baron
mean-
Browning grab,
You mean Alex Singleton, the fucking dog, one of the only people to put him in contention last year? Fuck you,
Okay,
Josie
well,
Jewell.
I'm not here to blow your horn here, Joe, but I'll yes. That
I
Alex
love
Singleton
Alex
who just
There you
beat
go.
tackles
Huh.
left, right,
I
and
wonder.
center. So
I wonder who put Alex Singleton in his top 10 out of pure fucking respect.
Yeah, I was going to say. Joe sticks with his guys. That'll
I
actually
can't wait to
come
talk
up.
about that.
I was going to say that's going to come up here
I can't wait to
early
talk
with
about that.
defensive linemen because Joe sticks with his guys when he latches onto them. Joe, I'm going to have you keep going. So you guys have already mildly touched on this. One of, I would say, most folks' biggest gripes when it comes to IDP is there's still no standardized scoring. But when it comes to the different positions, you're probably all playing in different kinds of leagues. Joe, what do you look for when it comes to the different positions? And I'll have you just go through the 3 position groups: defensive line, linebackers, DBs. Some leagues break them up, some leagues don't. But what are your what are you looking for when you're looking at those groups?
Yeah, so on the defensive line, tackles. At the linebacker position, tackles. And at the defensive back position, strip sacks. No, tackles. Literally tackles. I don't I don't care if you are the worst player on the field. If you get 10 tackles a game, you're on my roster. I don't care. A la Alex Anzalone, Alex Singleton.
Yeah.
That is exactly. They are not the best linebackers in the world. But you know what they do? They tackle. Blake Martinez was the number 1 linebacker in fantasy football for 3 straight years.
Yeah.
He's not currently on an NFL roster because he's not great, but he had 160 plus tackles.
Yeah.
All 3
Insane.
years.
Well,
What are you gonna
to Joe's point, one of the things I've learned from working with Joe and from playing IDP is going specifically to cornerbacks. Sometimes the worst corners are the
you wanted
best
to start.
fantasy assets because they're just getting targeted so much,
Hey.
and that gives them opportunities for tackles and fumbles.
L'Jarius Sneed, dog shit. Top 3 DB in fantasy football.
I think he was number 1 last year when it
Yeah.
comes to corners. Yeah.
You want to know why? Can't cover. Who's AJ Terrell? Money. Love
I
him.
say your guy in Minnesota.
Cameron Dantzler.
Yep.
Absolute dog.
Dan
Absolute dog. He's fantastic at allowing players to catch the football and then tackling them immediately.
Yep.
My favorite stat is Corey Littleton. Terrible linebacker. He's not very good. He covered Alvin Kamara in the NFC Championship. You want to know how many catches Alvin Kamara had? 11. Guess how many tackles Corey Littleton had? 11 solo tackles.
Yep.
That is 22 points in my league. Corey Littleton allowed 11 catches and he had 22 fantasy points.
They don't have to be good. They just have to be fantasy
They
good.
just
Mike,
have to, yeah.
Michael, keep it going. 3 position groups. Are you looking for anything specific, or is it just tackles?
It's tackles, but I'm listen. I want my sacks. I want my TFL. So when it comes down to my strategy and how I approach the 3 when we're talking about drafts, because that's how I interpret the question. Kind of, I want to get a D line early. I do like getting my top tier defensive lineman, and then from there, I will kick that second defensive lineman down the curve. I will stream that second one. I will look for one late because there's always someone I like. There's always someone I can find later that ends up breaking out, or someone that just rotates in, and I get the stable from the 1, and I could try to get the splash with the number 2. Linebackers, I fill it out throughout, and then defensive back, I punt even further than that second defensive lineman because they're just so plentiful. And the reason behind that is, listen, we want those bad corners, right? The Cam Dantzlers and the Shaquille Griffins of the world. Shaquille Griffin was a top 10 defensive back for a large part. Every game he played, he was like a top 8 play because of how bad he was. But those guys, we don't know how bad they're going to be until the season starts more often. So we're looking at those tackle safeties, and then all of a sudden these cornerbacks pop up that just are that bad. Yeah. So defensive back, I always wait on it. It always seems to work out. Just plenty of guys out there.
You brought up draft capital, and so there was a question I regretted not putting in the show sheet, and I was trying to figure out where I should fit it in, but this is a good place. So I'm going to start with you, and I'll come back around after we let Matt answer. When do you take your first defensive player? Because I think that's one of the more intimidating factor for folks who are playing IDP for the first time is like, how early do I take it? So do you go in with a set strategy where obviously studying ADP is going to help, but what round is too early, I guess, to start going defense?
I typically don't look before round 6, and for the most part, it's really looking at who's there. You see the tier of offensive players dip, and all of a sudden I'm in RB purgatory. The quarterbacks I like are gone that I'm willing to spend up on. My top tier tight ends are gone. I could take my wide receiver 4 and be okay with that, or I could take Micah Parsons and run away and be very happy with that. So it's very dependent on your format, on who's going where. If you see a rush coming, the tiers drop, but rule of thumb based on what I've done so far is around that 5-6 range. But perfect. I've seen it earlier. I've seen it much later. All
right, Matt, I'm going to let you continue on what you're looking for in position groups, and I would love for you to throw out when you start looking IDP in your drafts.
So I'm going to be kind of the outlier here. I hate corners. So I would rather have. I'm going
to interrupt real quick. I don't know if that makes you the outlier because that's kind of the status quo. So if you avoid corners, that's not bad advice by any stretch. So
I wouldn't necessarily say I avoid corners. I avoid non-rookie corners. Okay. I think rookies get picked on in the NFL. So if I'm going to go with a corner, I'm going to try to go for that high pick in the draft, like your Sauce Gardner, people like that, who I think some of those older quarterbacks are going to try to play chess with them a little bit and be like, okay, let's see how good you really are. Obviously, Sauce Gardner was insane, so that's probably a bad example because after a while they stop targeting him. You know what I mean? So that's the risk reward with that. But I like safeties, those in the box safeties. They're basically athletic linebackers. They're playmakers. They're the people that can not only break up the pass but lay the boom. Those Cam Chancellor back in the day. Nobody wanted to go across the middle of Cam Chancellor, even in the safe rules of today. It was like, no, this is just no fly zone. It's kind of reminds me of Jamal Adams, but we all know Jamal Adams probably makes us all want to pull our hair out.
Yeah,
As far as linebackers go, I have kind of a strategy that I try to use. Inside linebackers, everybody wants that middle linebacker, that guy that's just going to stop the run, 100 tackles a year.
Yeah, never leave the field.
Exactly. That's what you're looking for. Consistency is what I'm kind of looking for with my inside linebacker. He doesn't have to be that, 10, 15 tackle a week guy, but if he can get 8 or 9, let's say 6 or 7, that's going to win you weeks. But I like to do every now and then, I'm kind of a gambler. I like to have that edge guy that's coded linebacker, because those are the type of dudes like back in the day when they've done all the position changes now, which is so hard to keep up with at times. But TJ Watt for 3 or 4 years was coded as a linebacker, and there was risk with it, but more often than not, the dude was insane. And he had, on a championship Monday night, he had a 5-sack game. That's incredible.
You are kind of the outlier here, because most folks, the advice is the other way around. You're looking for the edge guy who is still coded as a defensive end,
and
so
honestly,
you can put him in that D lineman spot.
Most of the leagues I play in start 3 linebackers, so I'm not going to tell you that I start all 3 edge guys.
Okay.
I like to have those 2 inside guys that are going to kind of stabilize my points, but I like to roll the dice on that third guy.
Yeah, the risk reward.
Exactly, because that third guy, if I'm going to go with all consistent guys, that's kind of boring.
Yeah,
to be honest with you, I like a little bit of juice.
Points, no more, no less.
Yeah, I like a little juice, man. Sometimes get that 45 or 50 just because I was right. Now it'll burn you sometimes, and there are opportunities for that to happen. But I like a little bit of consistency with a little bit of chaos there at the end.
When do you take your first IDP? Obviously you're not going to know exactly, but when do you start looking? When are you done with offense?
Yeah, I think Mike was right. I think 5 or 6, because some of these guys are worth that pick. Some of these guys will outscore offensive players. You got to find the right ones, the right situations, and there's always people that go high and low. But I think that if you pick the correct one, there's always too high. You can always overdraft someone, but if you get that right guy and you drafted him a little bit higher, okay, you overpaid for a great player. I'll take that every time.
Yeah, don't think of it much differently than the offensive players. Joe, anything to add on when you should be drafting IDP?
I wait and see how it falls. I got Derwin James in the 11th, Jeffrey Simmons in the 12th, Jeremy Chin in the 14th.
So hitting on your late picks is just as important as it is with the offensive side.
Ryan Burns in the 18th round.
That's a steal. That's not even fair. Who are you playing against?
Well, in this league, so it is 3 points for a sack, 2 points for a tackle, one for an assisted tackle. So the sacks aren't weighed as heavy.
Yes, a heavy tackle league there.
But still, the first guy I took was Eric Kendricks. I was very high on Eric Kendricks last year. But I got him.
Will come up later in the show.
Yeah, I got him in the 9th round. And yeah, there was Nick Bosa was going in the 5th. Totally fine. One of the first guys, Roquan Smith was in the 4th. Fine. That's fine. Wherever they fall, totally up to you. I was going to my draft that I need 3 solid running backs, and one of them's going to get hurt. So, but that's my strategy. Once I kind of go from there, I pick and choose my guys after that.
Perfect. Guys, that's the quick intro. Now we're going to get into the actual position. So I had these guys each give me their top 10 at each position. And then I have a few players that we're going to call out at each position. Joe's changing things literally as
I forgot him. Okay. I literally looked at my draft. I was like, oh my God, it was literally my guy last year. And I forgot him.
Nah, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to list off the whole top 10 because nobody wants to hear me drone over 30 names. So we're going to start with defensive linemen. And one of the things that jumped out to me is your top 7s are almost identical when it comes to players. They're just in different orders. So you guys all have Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby. Yeah, Parkins.
Micah Parkinson's.
Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Christian Wilkins, TJ Watt, and Brian Burns. So they literally are in each one of your top 7. So those are pretty well the consensus. But you guys get a little different. I think each one of you have 3 different players for your last 3, and Joe had to go ahead and make it 4. And so what I looked for was just to have fun with this first one. And I want to start with, I've known Joe for 3-4 years now. And when Joe latches onto a player, Joe latches onto a player. I don't know that there has been a season since Trey Hendrickson was in the league that Joe was not telling me about Trey Hendrickson. So Joe, talk to us about Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati. And then I really want you to focus. Cincinnati over the last 2 drafts has put a lot of time and effort into improving their secondary. Is this something that's going to help Trey Hendrickson again in 2023?
Trey Hendrickson's in a contract year.
Ooh, even better.
You want to know who else in a contract year? Quinnen Williams. You want to know who else in a contract year? Uchenna Nwosu. There's a reason they are 8, 9, 10 on my list. If you look at last year, I feel like every guy we were bringing up in the running back free agency, wide receiver free agency, it didn't matter. Every guy that had a contract year, Devin Singletary, contract year, best season of his career. There's these guys that had the best years of their career because it was contract year. Mike Williams, what has he done outside of his contract year? Fucking nothing. Got hurt. Gets paid big bucks. Jeff Simmons last year, contract year, money, absolute dog. Guys that have played in their contract years recently, ball out. And Quinnen Williams will probably be the highest paid interior defensive lineman at the end of this year. And Trey Hendrickson, he's a little older, so he's looking for one more contract.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's a little older, looking for one more contract. He's opposite Sam Hubbard. They drafted the kid out of Clemson, correct? Miles Murphy.
Miles Murphy.
And their yes, like you said, Ryan, they've invested in their secondary. So you're gonna put DJ Reader, Sam Hubbard, Miles Murphy, and Trey Hendrickson on the same defensive line. You're gonna tell me Trey Hendrickson's not gonna have double-digit sacks against a piss poor Baltimore Ravens offensive line that's only gotten worse since Marshall Yanda left. The literal worst offensive line in the league in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
We fixed it. Joe.
Did you?
Michael,
what's this nonsense? What's this nonsense?
Did you?
Steelers fan nonsense.
That was like putting a Dora the Explorer Band-Aid over a fucking head gash. Okay? That's what fixing it was. And then the Cleveland Browns do have a solid offensive line, but they have shown that they can very much be beat on that offensive line. Also, run first team. Hell, just run right to Trey Hendrickson. So
lots of tackles.
He plays 4 games against teams with bad offensive lines. So that is a huge, massive thing there. And he also plays against a bad offensive line in practice. So he already knows what a bad offensive line looks like. I love Trey Hendrickson. I think he's fantastic. The no gloves look is an absolute just big dick move on the offensive line. Like, who plays with no gloves anymore? I think Trey Hendrickson's fantastic. There's nothing incredibly flashy about his game, but everything they've done, I don't think there's any way he doesn't have double-digit sacks this season, and he'll be at the lower end of defensive line 1.
I love it. Michael, you were the only one to include Za'Darius Smith, and Za'Darius Smith just moved from Minnesota to Cleveland. I don't know if that changed your rankings or not, so that's kind of the question I'm asking you. So now he is going from a defense where he was almost the focal point in Minnesota, where in Cleveland, he certainly won't be that. So did this trade help Za'Darius Smith for you?
I'm gonna quickly touch on what Joe said because I have a fun fact with that. I did a Dynasty startup draft a month ago now. I got Trey Hendrickson in the second to last round of about a 38 round draft or so, because he was drafting rookie picks as well. And it's exactly that. The age, just the age issue in Dynasty swings too far sometimes. So I completely agree. I think Trey Hendrickson's being left for dead and he really shouldn't be. But as I'm saying, Za'Darius Smith, it didn't move it too much. If anything, it moved it up slightly because I have some confirmation on what's happening with him. Because I was confident he wasn't going to be a Viking, but I didn't know if that meant trade, if he was going to be released, whether he'd have to wait to find a market. But he has a team in Cleveland, a team that was willing to give up picks to get him and take on a significant.
Did they give up picks though? Did they?
They traded a couple of fifths. They got a couple of sevenths back. It doesn't matter. All right, they traded for him. They could have waited it out. They could have not done it. Either way, they're taking on the big contract, Joe.
It was more like they walked into the convenience store and just stole like a Hostess donut. Like, that's what they did. They didn't really like
Hostess donuts here.
I love Hostess donuts, but they didn't pay for the Hostess donut. They're like, hey, I'm gonna take this, and then walked out of the store.
Okay,
and
Joe,
then the manager was like, okay, I don't really know what to do at this point.
Let me ask you, does a Hostess donut tastes differently whether you pay for it or not. I'd argue it would
It tastes
taste
better
even
when you
Probably
better.
steal
better.
it.
It would
Yeah.
taste better if you stole it. So
Yes.
this
You hear that,
Hostess,
kids? Pro
Yeah.
stealing.
We're
Club
pro
Fantasy.
stealing here on
This
this
is a
show.
pro robbery show.
This is a pro robbery show, and that's what the Cleveland Browns did with Zadarius Smith, who has had 10 sacks and 12 TFLs in all but one season since 2019. And the one season he didn't was when he played basically one game last year in 2021. So I disagree that he was the focal point even in Minnesota because Daniil Hunter is fantastic. And they have him on one side. Now he goes and now he gets to work with Myles Garrett on the other side. I think he could very well finish as a defensive line one in the back end of that 10 to 12 range. They signed I'm going to butcher the name, but Ogbonio Okonkwo as well to a good $19 million.
There's another Okonkwo in the league.
I know. It's spelled differently. So there's an
Then
R.
they
in
bring
there.
in, and they also brought in Tomlinson from Minnesota,
Sure,
correct?
but
Yeah.
Tomlinson will be inside for sure. That may-
Okay. I thought we were talking. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
love
yeah,
Dalvin
but-
Tomlinson.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people were talking about Okonkwo. Double O, I'm going to call him.
Okay.
You're braver than I am.
Okoronkwo. I'm going to
Yeah.
call him Double O. About
What
Double
a
O
name.
getting that edge roll on the side, but Zadarius Smith is a great pass rusher, and that's what he's going to get. He's going to get the fancy relevant snaps of. I think we're going to see what we saw from James Houston, except with more snaps. He's going to get that type of role where he gets the pass rush. He gets when they know they're going to be passing the ball, they're throwing Zadarius Smith out there. You mix it in with a couple early downs, it could easily be the DL number 10 to 13 on the year. So I didn't want to be left off this list.
No, I think it's a great call. And I think it was a great call mentioning he played opposite Daniil Hunter and still got his numbers in. And you're probably going to see something very similar in Cleveland.
They help each other. They help each other. That's the biggest
Really
thing.
quick before Michael's done, I think Double O is missing a huge opportunity not changing his jersey number to 7 so we can get a little 007.
Oh my
Ooh.
goodness. Well, then if that happens, I take back everything.
Or
Yeah.
zero.
Smith, because I will be all in on 007.
The backup defensive linemen
great point.
for the Cleveland Browns have sick names: Ogbo Okoronkwo, Siaki Ika, Perion Winfrey, and then this dude has to be white, Alex Wright. Like that, he
Yeah.
has to. Gotta be white.
He's getting cut. He doesn't fit the
Yeah,
scheme.
he
They
does
gotta
not
get rid of him.
fit. No.
Too plain.
Tommy Tolgai is going to take his spot.
There you go.
Continue.
Matt, you are the only one who showed any love to Aiden Hutchinson after a pretty solid rookie year. So I like what he did his first year in Detroit, but I think it's not hard to argue, and you maybe already touched on this, he was a little inconsistent. He had boom games, he had bust games, but it seems like maybe that fits into your game. So is that kind of what you were thinking there?
Yeah, so I like to do rankings in terms of would I want them in a dynasty league. I do a lot more dynasty, so I probably should have clarified that when I was filling these out. I think that, he was a second overall pick, and the second overall pick had 42 tackles and almost 10 sacks. Maybe they all came in spurts, but if you look at him on paper, that's exactly what you want out of the second overall pick in his debut year in the NFL. He's 22 years old. Think about that. And he already almost got a 10 sack year. Okay. So maybe they didn't double him. Maybe I know he had 2 games where he had a 3 sack game and a 2.5 sack game. So 5.5 came in 2 games. Fair enough. But this is still the NFL, and he still is growing. I would argue he's probably still growing into his body. So he's going to have a full off season with nutritionists, learning the playbook even more. There's a correlation. Maybe this is a stretch here, but ever since he's been there, the Lions are suddenly a relevant team. They're now playing national TV games. Okay. That's not exactly why, but you're getting what I'm saying. He's a Detroit kid.
It's all Aiden Hutchinson.
The Raiders have 5 primetime games. They're just giving them away at this point.
Hey,
So,
fair enough. But they got the Detroit kid. They brought him to Detroit. They're suddenly this fun and exciting team. And I believe that because of the Detroit connection, he could be a leader of this defense for years to come. They're investing high quality picks in their defense. Everybody's all worried about the Jack Campbell. Oh my gosh, Alex Anzalone, the graveyard linebacker. He signs again and all this nonsense. They're investing in that defense with young players. They are really trying to establish an identity, and they've already got a guy who's had a good year. And I think that number 10 was exactly where I needed to put him because I don't look, there's risk with it. There's absolutely risk with him, but I do believe that he's probably a value pick in your draft just because he's a Detroit Lion defender. And right now there's not really that many that probably jump out of the screen. I was a huge Rodrigo fan, so rip to Rodrigo after the Campbell draft pick. But
yeah, I had my eye on him quite a bit until
oh
Campbell.
man, it's such a shame. So I don't know. I just think that he has an absolute opportunity to build on what was already a good year, and he had 3 interceptions. What defensive lineman has 3 interceptions? Okay, one's a fluke. Maybe he got a
Weren't 2
tip
of them
ball.
on Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, he won't repeat that.
No, but I mean, you
He'll
get
be lucky
one.
to have one.
I'm more happy with the ability to defend passes. Remember,
Yeah.
JJ Watt back in the day was a weapon when it
Yep.
came to absolutely being able. I mean, people were practicing with JJ Watt with brooms to throw over brooms. So I really believe that he can add to your stat sheet, and he's going to do your typical defensive lineman stuff as well.
Matt, I'm glad you brought up Dynasty, and all of you guys have kind of touched on age, and by no means is 28 years old, but TJ Watt is 28, going to be 29 this year, missed 7 games last year. None of you guys have him particularly high ranked, if my memory recalls. Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
top 3 for you, Matt. Are we seeing the lessening of the TJ Watt dominance? Because in 2021, TJ Watt was the IDP to have, and I think it was pretty similar in 2020, but it was a little bit of a rough year last year, especially for those who spent high draft capital on him after an excellent 2022, or 2021 rather. So are we beginning to see TJ Watt come back to earth, or do we expect a rebound?
I think we expect a rebound. Sorry, I don't mean to jump on
No,
anybody
I
here,
wanted
but
you to answer. I was going with you.
yeah. So I just think, look, he got hurt. Okay, that happens. You know, he's getting older. It's going to start happening more often. Fair enough. You don't get less hurt the older you get. But I just think he is too explosive of a player to just be like, he might get hurt. He might not be good. I'll take my chances. And again, this kind of goes with the whole gambler. I like that edge rusher guy that can really blow open the game. He's one of those guys that at any given moment is going to cause a turnover, whether it's just from being around and they have to, they're doubling him so somebody else gets free, and then suddenly there's a turnover because there was a break in the offensive line, or he's the one actually forcing it. He makes plays in the game that will benefit other IDPs, and he's a lot of times the beneficiary of these plays.
And Joe, you've always been one who it depends on what he's coded as, and it depends on how the scoring goes. So is that your only concerns with TJ Watt, Joe, is the format that they're being drafted in, or are you starting to worry about longevity?
Don't play him at linebacker.
Matt. No.
Hey, I love it.
Don't play him at linebacker. Well, if he follows his brother's path, his brother at 28 played 5 games with 0 sacks. Then at 29, he played all 16 games with the most forced fumbles he ever had in his career at 7, and then 16 sacks.
Okay.
With 61 total tackles.
Ooh,
so if he follows,
that's some insight right there.
So if he follows his brother's path, which JJ was actually injured at 27 and 28, he only played 8 total games in 2 seasons. I mean, hey, they are of the same blood. So
quite literally,
they are literally the same person. So it's going to happen again. It's in the cards. I'm not crazily worried. It's just it kind of sucks that there's people that are just playing better on the field more than him. So like there were also times weirdly where TJ Watt was healthy and he just wasn't on the field.
Well, last year I think a lot of that was protection as well, because it was a pretty bad injury, and so
it was a bad injury.
Yeah, so
definitely a bad injury. It just I don't know. I feel very, very hesitant. If something happens again, they're going to be overtly cautious with him.
That's a good point. Yeah,
and that is why he is. I don't know what Pittsburgh's saving him for. They're not going to the playoffs. So
let's go to our Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Yeah, exactly. So, Mike, what's your take on TJ Watt before we move on?
Well, TJ Watt, that's one. I'll just quickly say, no, we are not making the playoffs. But besides that,
right.
TJ Watt. Listen, it's 1 year of someone being hurt. I'm not even. I treat him as if it didn't happen. It's rinse, repeat. Everyone gets hurt once in a while.
Yeah.
He comes back. You got Alex Highsmith on one side, who's really coming to his own. You got TJ Watt on the other. It's status quo. I have him at 4 because there's some more some fluctuality with a linebacker that rushes as opposed to Nick Bosa and Max Crosby. And he's right behind Micah Parsons, who's in the same boat as him. So, I view him very highly still.
Oh, Perfect. We're going to move on to linebackers, guys. And so with this one, the consensus wasn't quite what the consensus was with defensive line. So when I looked at your linebackers, what I noticed was there was no real consensus outside of Roquan Smith and Foye Oluokun being in all of your top 3, and Bobby Wagner in every one of your top 5s, which I found really interesting because he's getting up there in age, but he still continues just to kill it. We're going to talk about him. Exactly. But instead of having you guys focus on a specific player that you had ranked, I'm going the other way with this one because I found it very interesting for a lot of these players. 2 of you ranked them and 1 of them you skipped them altogether. So Mike, I'm going to start with you. You're the only one who does not have Eric Kendricks, who is a tackle machine. You do not have him in your top 10 at all. Explain yourself.
Well, so Mr. Eric Kendricks finds himself lovely spot in Los Angeles. Nice weather, nice scheme for a team that had Drew Tranquill last year. 146 tackles, very IDP relevant, and I love me some Drew Tranquill. But if I could look at 2 players at this point of his career with Eric Kendricks and see 2 completely different players in them, it's Drew Tranquill and Eric Kendricks. One was explosive. One rushed the passer whenever they asked him to. I don't think Eric Kendricks has that gear anymore. I think his PFF grades have slipped in each of the last 2 years, and drastically, I might add, because he was up there in 2020. Joe is giving me a smirk ready to jump down my throat.
I'm going to let it happen in this one.
Oh, let's go. Listen, Eric Kendricks.
Jordan Mason was the 2nd ranked running back according to Pro Football Focus in 2022. So we're going to pull shit like that out of our ass.
Hey, it won't be the only thing I'm saying here, because I also think that there's someone else here. They drafted somebody that I think is going to be what they want to be at linebacker, and that's Dion Henley. They spent a 3rd-round pick on him. I think he's a good player. He's a very good coverage player. I just don't know how – we didn't see 2 linebackers be relevant in Los Angeles. That's not really what happens there. They use one. They throw Derwin in there. They throw another safety in there, and they make it work. And I think that by the end of the year, we could be seeing Dion Henley do that. And if I'm, drafting for 8 weeks, 10 weeks of Eric Kendricks, and that's up what I hope he would be, I'm not ready to say he's a top 10 linebacker for me.
Didn't they draft Kenneth Murray at like 9 to do that though?
Kenneth Murray is terrible, but
but they drafted him to do exactly what this 3rd-round pick is. Sure. And Kenneth Murray's still
very different players
on the roster.
That's a mistake in itself, but very different players. Kenneth Murray was a run-stuffing guy.
Kenneth Murray catching strays.
Kenneth Murray needs to catch every stray. All right?
Oh, goodness.
Kenneth Murray was somebody that was a great run-stuffer in college that they wanted to grow into a coverage guy. Dion Henley is the inverse of that, and I think that's much easier to grow into.
You literally have one of the best coverage linebackers in Eric Kendricks. Why? I
don't know about still.
Hell yeah. In zone, he's nasty. He is nasty in zone. I'm not even going to argue this. Pro Football Focus's grades are dog shit. Deontay Harris was the 2nd ranked wide receiver.
Deontay Harris has some juice.
He is literally practice squad in Buffalo right now. That makes no sense. Their grades are asinine. Christian McCaffrey was the 41st ranked running back last year. Listen, you're telling me there's 7 backups better than Christian McCaffrey? No, that's false.
I'll throw one other thing out there with this, and it's not pertaining to Eric Kendricks as much as pertaining to the linebacker position. I can make the argument for 10 to 15 different guys to be my linebacker 10 here. And Eric Kendricks is probably going to be in that bunch of 15 that I could make the argument for, because there's just so many that get the job done.
That's what I noticed. You guys have, I think, when I counted it out, 20 guys combined in your top 10.
Yeah, because there's so many options at linebacker. There's a lot of options. So when one of us doesn't have it in there, I think part of it is just, wow, we just like this guy a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense. Matt, I'm going to let you. Do you have anything to add with Eric Kendricks? He obviously made your top 10 before I start asking you about the guy you left out.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a believer that he is a player that can contribute there. I don't trust anybody else there, even the guy they drafted. This IDP class of rookies isn't exactly jumping off the screen here for you and making sure that you I have to get this guy. Honestly, none of them. So I like Kendricks as he's a proven player. They wouldn't have signed him if they didn't have a role for him. He's still young enough that he can kind of turn this around. And he had a decent end of the year. Last year, he lost some playing time to Hicks. And then Hicks kind of bottomed out. And when Hicks bottomed out, you saw the points go back to Kendricks. So I just think that he kind of got a bad rap there mid-year. I was down on him personally. I was writing for it pretty consistently on Footballguys. But towards the end of the year, it was one of those things where you just go, hey, I got to stop. I'm wrong. He's doing well here. We need to see what's going on here. It's fantasy playoffs. So he kind of re-energized his season right when you needed to be during the playoffs. And the last sample size we have, he was playing well. So I see him in a new system where he can be hopefully just as successful as he was in his early years with Minnesota, because he's kind of always been that guy for me who's I just want more. I just feel like he can do more. And it's just hasn't really worked in Minnesota, but he's got a fresh start, and I trust him more than a rookie.
I like it. When I looked over your top 10, the first thing that brought a smile to my face was Jamin Davis. This show is a very pro Jamin Davis show.
He's got a real shot. This is it. This year's
it is a pro Jamin Davis show.
Yeah. However, you do not appear to be pro Logan Wilson, who had a hell of a year last year. And I didn't even need to point this one out. Michael Eagle Eye caught it immediately. He had notes in the show notes. What's going on with the distaste of Logan Wilson?
So full disclosure, I'm a Cincinnati raised kid. So I love the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay. I'm in Indianapolis now. So
that's why he's a Colts fan.
Yeah, right. I'm in Indianapolis now, but I am a Cincinnati guy through and through. Last year, he played well. He played better of the two linebackers, but Pratt didn't play that much worse than him. And they were separated in a couple leagues I'm in by an average of about 25 total points. Okay. And it was, I think the tackle discrepancy was the biggest thing there, where there was like 25 different tackles. Okay. So about 25 tackles away. Pratt did not play a lot of snaps compared to Wilson, which that's kind of a red flag for me. And Pratt also just got a 3-year deal. And I believe it's because they are going to start investing more heavily in him. He's a part of that core. They let guys walk. They let a lot of people walk in the offseason. As we mentioned at the beginning of the show, they brought in the draft the last few years. They've really been investing in defense. And then they just paid a linebacker on the same team. So it wasn't like they went and signed a guy. Not a lot of linebackers get money. I think they're building a core here. Not that they won't do the same with Wilson. Wilson's younger. So in Dynasty, I'm not going to sit here and bash Logan Wilson. I don't think he's a bad linebacker, but I think the value you can get waiting more and then taking Pratt would outweigh me wanting to grab Wilson in a higher round.
Okay, Michael, you were the one. Go for it, buddy.
My biggest love for Logan Wilson, and like I said, I'm the Steelers fan, so if I want to hate a team, it'll be the Bengals, but Logan Wilson, the narrative last year, if we all travel back and think about what it was is he going to be healthy? Because he was coming off the big injury, and will he be ready for week 1? It turned out he was, but he clearly was not himself. And it took time to get back to it. And once he made it, once he recovered, you saw just top 5 linebacker play on a weekly basis. And it was really good for real life purposes as well as fantasy. So, from week 10 to week 16, we saw all but one game have 8 tackles combined. So we know also what he does in coverage. He's excellent in coverage. So I think there's a high ceiling from Logan Wilson that we saw at the end of last year that can continue. I completely agree with Matt's point, though, because Jermaine Pratt played well. They paid him, and I think we could see more 2 linebacker sets that we see a little bit more Jermaine Pratt without losing Logan Wilson in the process. And maybe that's a testament to losing, Von Bell in the process as well. It's a bit of a new defense in general.
They lost Jesse Bates.
The linebacker on. Yep, Jesse Bates as well. So I think they could just be making up for it as well with, forcing him in there. And he's a locker room favorite too.
I want to say part of another reason why I'm not a big Wilson guy, I like consistency. And at the beginning of the year, every other game was double digits. So it was like double digit point, bad performance, double digit, bad, double digit, bad, got hurt, double digit, then bad, bye week, did the same thing. And then until your stretch that you mentioned, he was an inconsistent linebacker until that stretch, but the booms were huge. They were huge. So if you were diamond hands, right, and you played him when it mattered the most, you were rewarded. So again, when it comes to my inside guys, I just want the consistency. I didn't feel it was there enough to justify a top 10 spot.
Yeah, I justify it by saying I think he was still coming off that injury. We weren't sure if he was going to rep week 1, and all of a sudden, inconsistency I tend to chalk up to maybe he's not 100%. Had that injury midway through the year, got the week off, bye week, and then went for the run. But you could be absolutely correct that maybe he's just a 105 to 125 tackle guy, and at that point, you're not taking him as early as either. It's good, but it's not worth the draft cost. Like if I'm saying I have him inside my top 3, I want more than 125.
Joe, anything to add on Wilson before I ask about your guy?
He's a really good coverage guy. That's why I like him.
I know you like the coverage, guys. But Joe, I also know that you just hate everything Kansas City Chiefs related. And so after an excellent rookie season where he almost kind of came out of nowhere and then just topping it off in the sophomore season, you feel the need after these two guys put Nick Bolton in their top 5s to not even put him in your top 10. Talk to me about that. You got 3 question marks on the show sheet because that shit makes no sense, Joe.
Yeah, fuck this guy. I feel like I watch a lot of Chiefs football because they're on every fucking
week.
Time every week. Like literally, you can't not watch the Chiefs. And maybe it's because I don't hear the announcer going, "Oh, Jim, Nick Bolton." So maybe it's because Tony Romo's not really focused on that side of the football. I don't think there's anything really flashy about Nick Bolton, which is maybe why I'm not the biggest fan of him. He's good. I don't think there's anything flashy about Nick Bolton.
You don't like good?
I'd say Jordan Brooks was just good. I mean, I think that's
Jordan Brooks is not good. Okay?
Sure, but that's
Jordan
my point.
Brooks.
I say in Joe's defense, rookie year, no sacks, no interceptions, and then last year just upped it. Not to say 2 interceptions isn't good for a linebacker, but still only 2 sacks as well. So maybe that's what you're just avoiding there is the no splash plays.
So Joe, can I ask you a question? So do you not like the 180 total tackles or is it the 2 sacks additionally?
So I just don't like the Chiefs.
Oh my God.
And like, I honestly, I don't know what it is. I don't love Nick Bolton. Like honestly, I don't think there's anything about his game. Maybe it's because he's just consistently in the right spot that I don't. And it sounds bad. It sounds terrible with how I'm
not buying it. I'm trying
to.
I'm really
fine.
trying.
This is fine. All you need to know is Alex Singleton's top 10. No, there's nothing about his game that look at him like, oh, yeah, okay. He's also on the field all of the fucking time, which helps because his offense is off the field in 20 seconds, which helps a little bit. So,
can I give you one more?
Go ahead. Yeah, I don't care.
He's 23.
Yeah.
Bobby Wagner's 33 is going to score more points than him, so it don't matter.
Hey, you know what?
It doesn't even matter.
Perfect segue. We're talking about linebackers a lot, but let's talk about Bobby Wagner because you guys all had him in your top 5. And I love Bobby Wagner. Do not get me wrong. This is going to come across like I don't. The man is 33 years old.
Yeah.
Left and came back. He's just sliding in, taking the job back. Still a top 5 linebacker, guys.
Right, he's going to go out with 225 fucking tackles and 17 sacks. What do you mean?
He certainly did not miss a beat in the Rams, and I'm not alluding to that at all. I'm just saying it's in, it's out, it's in. We're not worried at all.
Bobby Wagner should be linebacker 1, except Foyesade Aluakon just decides to, tackle everything within 50 yards of him.
Now,
he's an anomaly.
Matt and Mike, you guys have kind of talked about what you've been seeing in drafts. Where is Wagner going in drafts? Is his age dragging him down? Is he a value? Because I feel like with his name, you're paying up for Bobby Wagner, but I don't know if that's the case. I haven't done an IDP draft.
So to piggyback on Joe here, his name is not affecting his draft stock. He's getting drafted high, and it's not high enough. The dude's
not high
insane.
enough.
He was PFF's number 1 linebacker last year.
Oh, don't bring up PFF unless
no.
Unless it proves Joe's point.
This proves my point. This proves my point. Okay,
so
this proves my point.
He's a stud. He was the IDP 1 for like 3 or 4 straight years when he was in this same defense with the same head coach, who's a defensive head coach. Everybody's worried about when Brooks comes back. That's going to be late year, if at all, next year. So
Jordan Brooks is not seeing the fucking field if he was healthy all 17 games. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, Wagner is not letting any tackle go by. You can have your little outside linebacker guy. Bobby Wagner is in the middle of that defense. They don't even need 2 other linebackers. He'll get them all. It's never mattered when Bobby's been in that defense, and it shouldn't matter this year either.
Michael, I'm going to let you go too, because this is the first time you guys have agreed when it comes to linebackers.
Yeah, and I don't even want to add too much to it because I think everything was said of just Bob Wagner didn't fall off. We were all on the same page with that. He's in the most nostalgic defensive head coach ever with Pete Carroll, who will be very happy to let his guy walk back in. And even if Jordan Brooks is healthy, let's say he comes back week 5, Bobby Wagner is better. And we've seen Cody Barden be incredibly fantasy relevant, and Cody Barden is terrible. So
I was so
if-
Team Barton too.
It was. Oh, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but my goodness, like maybe you can work in Washington. It's a good spot for him in Washington, but that's another point. They can have two linebackers succeed for sure, and Bobby Wagner is going to 100% take what he wants.
And to add, you're telling me that he was just with Aaron Donald, and that's pretty much the entire defense that they have there.
Yeah.
Now he has Uchenna Nwosu and Jaron Reed, who they have to deal with on the defensive line.
Contract year to Wosu.
A contract year, fucking Nwosu, 17 sacks this season, fucking Nwosu. And then their secondary is 5th overall pick, Devin Witherspoon. Jamal Adams when he comes back healthy, hopefully. If not, Julian Love is there. Quandre Diggs, Tariq Woolen, and Kobe Bryant.
Ooh,
You're telling me he has
a
Stud.
hell of a defense.
You're telling me he
Stud.
has more time to get to the quarterback and less people worrying about him getting to the quarterback and causing havoc?
It's a problem.
225 tackles, 17 sacks, Bobby Wagner. Greatest IDP season ever.
All right, guys, we're going to move on to the corners here. This was kind of in between your linemen and your linebackers, where you don't have a big consensus, but it's not quite as different as it was with the linebackers. You guys all agree. This might be the first time Derwin James is number one. You have Buda
No
Baker, Jalen Petrie, and Minka Fitzpatrick all represented right around the same rank. I did notice that, Matt and Mike are very close, and Joe is very different, even putting a linebacker in his ranking. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But I kind of went with the same thing just because it felt a lot like the linebacker ranking. So I want you guys to talk about the people you left off, because you guys basically had the same thing, 7 the same, 3 different. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Chicago Bears, Jaquan Brisker had a pretty damn good season last year. He doesn't make your top 10?
So define pretty good, because he finished as the 17th best safety.
I think the 4 sacks and the interception fumble recoveries, I think that's kind of what drug him up there for everybody else, that he makes the splash plays out of D.
And look, I don't think it'd be bad if you got him, but I just felt like there were just better players above him. I don't hate on the man, but I just think I would rather have somebody like a Jalen Thompson. If you're going to take a risk on somebody who's maybe up and coming, I thought Jalen Thompson was the guy for that. But I don't know. It wasn't. And there wasn't any real reason. I didn't think about Jaquan Brisker when I was doing these, but it wasn't because I forgot about him. It was just because I just don't see him in that tier.
Yeah. And because there are better questions later on with the DBs, I'm not even going to have you guys argue with each other about people who you left out. I'm just going to have you explain why you left these guys out. So, Mike, I'm just going to move on to you with this one. Julian Love, as Joe mentioned, over in Seattle now. You left him out of your top 10.
Yeah, it's funny because I was the biggest Julian Love supporter last year into the summer. It was one of the first articles I ever wrote for the newsletter. Actually was making the case for Julian Love back in June, but it's Seattle now. It's a new defense, and like we talked about, it's a pretty deep defense. You have Jamal Adams, while healthy, is going to be ahead of him with the valuable snaps for IDP. You got Quandre Diggs back there. You got just a very crowded cornerback room, so I don't know if we're going to see him in the slot at times. It's not what he does normally anyway. When I see the change coming off a significantly better year, we're going from Wink Martindale to now this Pete Carroll defense that, yes, it's always supported safeties for IDP. It's really been very productive, but I fear the unknown a little bit with Julian Love. And just if I mention volatility with linebackers of where they can end up, let's just add 10 million more for defensive backs, because listen, it's I guarantee you half these names will not be in the top 15, and then half of the guys outside the top 50 will be in the top 5.
Exactly. So. And Joe, you stayed in the same division. Pretty damn good season last year for Talanoa Hufanga, and you don't find room for him in your top 10?
He had a really good first half, and then they changed their defense because they got so injured that Hufanga actually had to cover, and he wasn't in the box hitting people. When he's in the box hitting people, he's great. But they had so many injuries on their secondary, and Jorge brought it up on our show. They were literally running with like their 5th and 6th defensive backs on the outside.
Yeah, corners were rough.
The corners were rough there. Year. So if they have to do that again, Hufanga is almost useless back there with his skill set. He's very good around the ball. He's again equated to Troy Polamalu. He's fantastic.
I was going to say that was the comparison happening last year.
But you're not drafting Devin McCourty. Devin McCourty can also tackle and play very well in the box. But Devin McCourty is 25 yards deep in a cover 2 half the time.
Yeah.
So he's not getting you points back there. And when he does, he has to go up either intercepted or pass deflections, which for reference in terms of offense, that's again, you're going for touchdowns. Interceptions equate to touchdowns, and they come few and far between, less than touchdowns. So that's why I don't have Hufanga. If you could guarantee me Hufanga's in the box, he's a top 5 defensive back. But I can tell you for a fact that Derwin James, Budda Baker, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jalen Petrie, and Jaquan Brisker are going to be in the box hitting the piss out of people. So,
Joe, I really like how you mentioned the 49ers injury thing, because it feels like every year they're just
especially in
decimated
the
with
secondary.
Injuries. It's insane.
It's in
so
the
I never thought that point. I really like that.
Because the narrative should be now they're healthy, Hufanga could go back in the box, but that's not. It's just they're going to get.
We're just waiting for the domino to fall.
He'll
Who
go
else will get hurt?
He'll go in the box. It's funny because he had in the league I'm looking at, he had 2 20+ point games the first 4 weeks. Emmanuel Mosley goes down week 4. He does not have a performance over 15 points after that.
It was tough.
And there was weeks, and now granted, he came at 10-11, right? They were shifting the defense a little bit, but he had 6, 2, 7, 7, 9.
Yeah.
There was no room for him to make a splash play because he was just playing a deep safety position. And that's not he's not a true, it's weird to say Daron Harmon is probably a better deep safety than Talanoa Hufanga because he has better ball skills. Talanoa Hufanga needs to be a surprise, I'm going to jump the route kind of guy, not a I can play 30 yards deep and I know when to go up and get the ball and kind of play that kind of guy. He is I'm going to jump the route kind of guy. Daron Harmon's not that guy. So I'd put Daron Harmon as a better player in that system than Talanoa Hufanga. And Hufanga's a way better safety than Harmon.
So really quick, I know we're arguing safeties here, which is boring everyone, but I'm a huge safety fan. He had 26 tackles in those games that you mentioned before the hurt, but he had 97 on the year. So the tackle total was not affected that much. No. It was the big plays.
Yes, exactly.
It was the big plays, like you mentioned. He was just doing something that he wasn't comfortable with, and it affected the big play potential.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of that's probably thinking about what he's doing instead of just doing it, because that's when players typically are the best, when they get to go out and be themselves. But you guys have already started getting along, but I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to talk positive about some players. And so each one of you had a really interesting name that you were the only one you had ranked. So Mike, I'm going to start with you, Jeremy Chin. I caught some shit last year when I said Jeremy Chin might have been being overdrafted, but you see a bounce back in the cards. So.
Yeah, it's I don't feel good about this. Is not a plant my flag one, truthfully. I see it, but it hurt me so bad last year because I was pretty in on him last year, and just the injuries and everything really didn't work. But he was so drastically misused last season, it was criminal. So I'm hoping that with a new defensive coordinator, Ejiro Rivero, who worked wonders with Denver last year, I'm hoping they find a role. I think he's going to see a lot more time in the slot than he did in the first half of last year. And we saw him start to get some of that work and successfully do it during Carolina's strong push at the end of the season. So, yeah, they have 2 linebackers kind of situated. The box might be busy at times, but, I mean, if they're going to put someone in the box, Jeremy Chin is still a very damn good player. And they have Xavier Woods. They have Von Bell to sit back there. They've added guys to play the coverage. I think they freed up Chin to really be close to the line of scrimmage and do whatever they need him to do. But it's a dangerous type of game. I'm probably not paying the price if there is one, but if people are still burnt by him, I'm willing to buy the bounce back because I do think there could be one.
I love it. Matt, talk to me about Harrison Smith getting up there in age, but we haven't seen a ton of fall off in his game.
Harrison Smith is the ageless wonder. Yeah. I am riding this train till it falls off the tracks. Okay, so through week 2, before he got hurt, he had 20 tackles in 2 weeks at 33 years old.
It's ridiculous.
It's insane. Now he came back, and I don't believe he was healthy often the rest of the year, but he had 8 of the 14 games he played were double-digit games. He's 34. He's going to slow down. He's not going to get uninjured. But, dude, when he is healthy, it's like watching a totally different game with him. Yeah. He is a linebacker that can play safety. And he's been like that since year 1. Honestly, this is probably hard over head. I've just had him in so many leagues for so long that I'm just not ready to give up yet. I would put him number 1 if I didn't love Derwin James so much.
He's what Talanoa Hufanga wants to be when he grows
up. I love it.
He's just, I don't know. It's every year you get the same thing. Lots of tackles, couple boom plays a week. Some get called back, some don't. And then every now and then he just kind of, towards the end of his career here, I should say, he's just kind of had those dud games. So there is risk with him. I just couldn't keep him out of a top 10 list. Not when he's in the league, not while he's breathing.
I love it. And if you've watched any club fantasy show, and certainly any show where we have ever talked about defensive players, you know that I was contractually obligated to give Joe time to wax poetic about Cameron Curl. Joe, talk to him.
Good night.
My darling. My darling son. The 1/14th of that championship.
I'm pointing to a belt that you can't see.
With like,
that's the Cam Curl
with like
right
30
there.
points in that championship game because I told Ryan to go pick him up. He kicked I don't even remember his name anymore because Landon Collins. He kicked a Pro Bowl safety out of his position as a 7th round player. That's pretty damn good. Ron Rivera's used him very, very well. They have Derek Forrest, I think, when Cam Curl was hurt last year. Forrest came in and played well, but now they're actually going to play together in tandem. So that's going to be very interesting. And Forrest was better, I think, actually playing deep. And Cam Curl is more in the box and playing in the area where he can force fumbles and jump routes. He's just an all-around extremely good safety, extremely polished safety. I just love that nobody has a fucking cornerback on this list, which is fantastic.
You guys did great.
Yeah,
exactly.
So
I love mad.
I love Cam Curl. Love Cam Curl.
Perfect. All right, guys, we're already running over on time, but you guys have so many good notes. I'm not going to make you skip anything. Oh,
go quick. Go.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. Yep. Let's go quick. So let's talk rookies who can make an impact year one. Joe.
It's Christian Gonzalez. I don't fucking know. He made tackles. Like, who fucking cares?
Mike.
Dorian Williams could start. Could be the next Jermaine Evans. Boom.
And Matt.
Drew Sanders. Everyone around him isn't exactly the best. I think he's got a real opportunity this year.
Perfect.
And everyone at the same time. Will Anderson.
Will Anderson.
We all know Will Anderson, obviously. All right, we're going to end the show with sleepers and busts. Joe, give me your sleeper. Give me your bust.
If Jamal Adams gets healthy,
there's no way
anyone's drafting him high. Hell, he might not even get drafted. So if he comes back, he's a lock for 15 points a week. So, and then also they're going to misuse CJ Gardner-Johnson in Detroit. Please, God, do not draft him. They are not moving Kirby Joseph or Tracy Walker out of their safety positions. That is the only spot CJ Gardner-Johnson had a good season in his entire fucking career. Do not draft CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's terrible as a nickel cornerback. Look at the stats. He's dog shit at it. Not even to the point where he will let them catch the ball and tackle it, to the point where he will let them catch the ball and just run really fucking fast by them. So they're going to misuse him. Do not draft CJ Gardner-Johnson.
Mike, sleepers, bust.
Robert Spillane was given a 2-year, $9 million contract with the Raiders. He had 34 tackles and 2 TFLs across his last 4 games where he started 100% snaps. And he came out and said that they're going to give him the chance to get the green dot this summer. So I think he could easily get that, and he's going undrafted or pretty much right now. So I'm stashing him everywhere I can. It's a weak room. And as for a bust, I can never pay the price for Fred Warner. Amazing linebacker. Too damn good for his own good because he drops into coverage and he's just too damn good. And because of how good he is in real life, yes, he is the best coverage linebacker. And he's too good for his own good for IDP because he drops too deep. And because of how his big name, people draft him really high. I'm never willing to pay the price.
Perfect. And Matt, you went a different route because you're a dynasty guy. Let's talk rookies, sleepers and busts, guys, people who might have their eye on because of the draft capital.
Hey, I appreciate you making me look smart, but let's be real. I misread the show notes. So I took two rookies here.
Jordan Battle is a great pick.
Yeah, I love that too. I love that too.
My sleepers, Jordan Battle, safety for the Bengals. Look, they got rid of both of their safeties this past year. Jesse Bates, 2 or 3 years back, was an absolute must-have in IDP. And he's gone now. Von Bell last year was really good alongside. Now they're putting Dax Hill up, and they've got Nick Scott currently ahead on the depth chart. But I think by the end of the year, Jordan Battle being a 3rd-round pick, the capital is there where he's going to at least factor in some way. There's a real opportunity that you could get a steal in dynasty rookie drafts. Maybe don't take him in your actual – if you're just doing a redraft, I wouldn't take him. But I'd keep him on that watch list for the waiver wire most of the year because I really believe that he's going to have opportunities to showcase that the pass defense is better than Eli Apple left us. And then bust, I had also a rookie, Jalen Carter. I just feel like people are going to draft the name. And last year, Jordan Davis was the darling. defensive tackle that was drafted by Philadelphia, and he did not do really
Barely
anything.
played.
Yeah, so we got Fletcher Cox is still there. You have Jordan Davis back. Now you're going to add a third person into that mix. Fletcher Cox is not going to be the one that sits. He's a dog. Shout out to the UC Bearcats. He's still there.
Shout out to the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, that whole defense is
The Philly
Georgia
Bulldogs.
2.0.
The Philadelphia Bulldogs.
So I just think that he honestly could go in redraft leagues, and I just feel like that would be a mistake just because it's muddy waters there. They have a lot of really good pass rushers, and they have a lot of good interior defensive linemen. So it's going to take a couple of standout games for me to trust that he'll be somebody that you can start every week. And I just felt like, as a rookie, don't draft the name, go for somewhere else.
Perfect. Matt, tell everybody where they can find your work. Thank you guys so much for doing this show with us. Remember, folks, obviously you've picked it up at this point. This wasn't a live show, but make sure you're following these guys, because if you have IDP questions that we couldn't answer on the show, they're going to take care of you. So Matt, where can they find you on Twitter?
So primarily I'm on Twitter. My tag is at Matt Monty FF. I write for Footballguys, so I do a weekly stock market for Footballguys yearly. We're going to do that again this year. And then I do the forward projections, which were the throw tomatoes at me segment of each week, which was kind of cool. So, so it's that's where I primarily do my work. I also do other sports stuff if you care on Last Word on Sports. I do a lot of NBA, a lot of football, a lot of just debate topics. Who are your favorite legends, stuff like that.
Perfect. Michael, where can they find you?
Yeah, Twitter is my pride and joy of life. So at Micahel__Sicoli on Twitter, I run IDP Guy. I run a newsletter for IDP Guys as well. So if you're interested in IDP, feel free to check that link in my description up there. And also a little teaser. Some news might be coming soon about a sports gambling site I might be starting to write for. So definitely follow. Keep on checking that one.
Remember 2 underscores till we get that other Micahel Sicoli off of here.
Because I was way too slow to get that one. I might just change it.
And you can follow Joe at Joe_Zollo. But more importantly, Joe, who should they be following?
I have the Bismarck Larks. I don't care if you follow my personal. Go follow it on Instagram. That would be nice. But
Yeah, get this man paid.
please.
Guys, we just dropped episode 3 of the Dynasty After Party with the Micahel Sicoli, Joel Wirth, Andrew Elmquist. They were discussing impact rookies on the other side of the ball. So make sure you check that show out every single Tuesday night. Just recorded last night a new episode. Kelly and Adam are going to give you the golf DFS show. They've been doubling people's money, specifically Josh, who works here. So you need to make sure you're following that show if you are just a complete degenerate and need to play DFS golf. Mock It Like It's Hot is my mock draft show. That's going to be every single Monday. We just did a startup mock draft with Kelly Singh. And this week, we're actually inviting a fan onto the show, Phil Burns. He's not one of the Twitter talking heads. He's just someone who likes to mock draft. So it's going to be nice to have a good, fresh voice out there. So make sure you're checking that show out every Monday. And no pun intended, this show kicks off next week, our A Look Inside series. Once again, we are not live, but there's a very good reason for that. We welcome the amazing Adam Rank on the show as we discuss Houston, Arizona, and Adam's Chicago Bears. So we will be pre-recording that show, but it will air next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And I'm terrible at the very basic club fantasy outro, so I'm going to give it to the man with all the skills. Joe, get us out of here.
God, it sucks having a full-time job not being able to be on the Adam Rank show. I've missed Stefania Bell twice, Laura Oakman, and now Adam Rank. So we're batting full fucking 1,000.
Yeah, it's a good thing. As I pointed out before, you're not like trying to make a fledgling career in this, and we're just killing all of your networking connections.
Literally. I mean, I've networked enough over the last month. Hopefully that'll get me a big job that I can announce soon enough. But Ryan, Matt, Mike, myself, fuck Josh. You can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football. We will see you next week.